everyone, and welcome back to the island of Mewseille. My name is Cara, and today we will be transforming my upstairs room into a super autumnal loft split between a bedroom area and a super cozy and cluttered living space. Let's begin by adding the cafe curtain wall and some light herringbone floor. This is my favorite flooring, and it's in over half of the house that I'm currently building, but I love the Parisian feel of it. Next, I will be adding a large area rug to define the living space. And for this build, I will be sticking to a color scheme of dark blues as well as very warm toned woods from light to dark. I'm trying to keep this feeling very fall without going overboard with reds and yellows, just because I think that it allows this room to transition a little bit better between seasons. Using different tones of wood is really helpful in builds like this where it is predominantly quite brown, because it allows a bit more depth between what you're adding. For example, if I did everything in the same shade of dark brown, it would all blend together and it would be hard to tell it apart. As you can see, the couches and this antique bureau are a much darker and richer brown than the bookcase and this music player. This helps just layer the colors a little bit nicer. I explained to you guys last time in my video where I was decorating my study and library the benefits of filling your pockets with items you want to use before you start, just for the sake of keeping yourself organized and efficient. But you might notice that I'm way more efficient than usual in this build, and that's because I've actually built this room multiple times before. Not on this island, I had it on previous islands of mine, and I thought that I would just recreate it using a little bit different furniture. So I'm definitely not using the exact same setup as I did before. I have a lot more furniture that I didn't have back then, but I've definitely done this before, which is why I generally know immediately where to put things. As always, I'm sticking to my rule of every fireplace must have a cat bed nearby, at least one per room, so that they have somewhere warm to curl up and sleep. And I'm also using tons of plants, as I always do. It's just something that I can't stop doing. And one tip that I do have for you guys is that if you have an area that's giving you a bit of trouble, like this spot right next to this wardrobe, my best advice is to just put an object there and let it sit with yourself for a while. Just leave it alone, just put something there as a placeholder item, and later you can come back to it and fill it in with something that fits perfectly. If you can't really think of something to put in it at the time that you're building it, it's much easier to think about it for a while than to really agonize over the choice. Since this is just a game for fun, I don't think it's worth stressing about. Over on the bedroom side of things, I am using, instead of the antique bed, a just random log bed that I had lying around, and that's so that I can use a custom bedding on it. I actually matched the pattern to the cat bed so that there's a little bit of visual continuity going on there. And I also built a little typewriter desk nearby. I'm adding a fireplace as a room divider. Ideally, this wouldn't be overlapping with the carpet, but I thought it looked nicer if it was back a little bit, so I just had to get over that. Just adding a couple little cute items around to make it look a little more cluttered and lived in. One thing that's really important to making a build look realistic is to make sure everything's facing the right direction, such as this plant. The direction that you're looking at when you are putting things in the room is not necessarily the direction that characters in the room would be looking at everything, so make sure to keep that in mind. Another example of this is the little house slippers that I'm rotating. I just made it so that it was at a more realistic angle for taking it off before getting into bed. As a final touch for floor items, I'm going to add a Trees Bounty lamp just to add a little bit more light. And then I'm going to move on to the walls. I'm going to keep the walls quite simple just because there's so much going on with this wallpaper. So I'm going to stick to a couple items per wall. I'm going for some hanging terrariums as well as some paintings and things like that. Literally this wall only has 2 items on it, which is totally fine. This is quite a elaborate wall from Sahara that we have. And then above the bed, I'm going to hang a painting from Red. I'm going to go for this winter scene, which kind of adds to the coziness of the room by emphasizing that the weather outside might be quite snowy, and then also some dried flowers. And I will be hanging these up in the window, so it seems realistic that they could have dried there as the seasons change, just hanging up in the light of the sun coming in. As for the other wall, I've done something that I usually wouldn't go for, and I've covered up a good part of the window with this pendant. And I just thought that this broke up the fact that these windows go completely all the way around the room. And then I'm also using my other favorite trick, which is a tiny bit of a glitch, of putting the potted plant on top of a bookcase like that, which creates the effect of it sitting on the bookcase, even though it is not. Finally, I went for a cuckoo clock and some imperial shelves just because they match the color scheme. One thing that is really important to me when I'm making these builds is even when they're super cluttered, I like to be able to walk around in the final product just so I can get better angles with the camera and I can actually use the room that I've created. So I made sure that the bed was accessible in at least one side. Also that I made sure that there were a lot of places that I could sit down even though I couldn't access the couches and one of the desk chairs. I just thought it was important to be able to interact with the room that I've created. Finally, I made sure that I could access the wardrobe and just change my clothes whatever room that I'm in. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you are inspired to create some cozy fall rooms of your own. If you like this video, please consider subscribing or finding me on Twitter and Instagram at mewseille. Tomorrow I will be posting another short video just preparing for the Halloween update and demonstrating some of my best tips for creating visually interesting pumpkin patches. I am also working on an Oktoberfest area and a mushroom forest, so keep an eye out for that, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time.